Selamat datang ke ASM Podcast yang dibawakan khas oleh Akademi Sains Malaysia. Siri podcast ini merupakan platform perkongsian topik-topik berkaitan sains, teknologi, inovasi dan ekonomi STIE secara santai dan mudah difahami. Setiap episod akan menampilkan jaringan pakar ASM yang akan berkongsi pengalaman dan pendapat mereka tentang STIE seiring dengan etos ASM. Budayakan sains, raikan teknologi, cetuskan inovasi.
Okay, thank you for being with us. So I'm the moderator for this session, and this session is entitled ASM ArtScience Planetary Health Public Engagement 1. So as you can see, we have three brilliant and distinguished panelists that we have chosen due to their experts in their field, and also be able maybe to shed light on how art and science converge through the lens of planetary health. And we always wonder what's the definition of planetary health in itself. So okay, without further ado, I'm just gonna do some opening remarks. I'm Dr. Roslina Ismail. I'm the chairperson for the ArtScience Prize 2022. So we will be introducing what this ArtScience Prize is about later on, but after our discourse with our three gentlemen here. Okay. So I attended the first session, the ASM first session when Dato' Asma opening remark. She's the president of Academy Science. When she talked about wise stewardship, our role of wise stewardship, and how policy needs to be transformative and take into consideration of people-driven, nature-driven, and value-driven. This actually kind of like connect to my understanding of our relationship to these three triangle aspects of, with our creator, our relationship with the nature, with our environment, and our relationship among humans. So in this triangle, which we see like point, this point of when it meets together, that actually created an active center. This active center, which can be disruptive, but also can be a form of creative energy or innovation. And inside that triangle of creator, nature, and human is that infinite flow of knowledge. And how do we see this knowledge, and how do we define this knowledge? Because that infinite flow of knowledge consists of the acquired knowledge and also the inherent knowledge. The acquired knowledge are the learned knowledge, the one that we acquire when we go to school, when we learn technology-based, empirical, that can put us ahead in life. It gives us a good career, and define you as a scientist and artist and all these skills and practice. But that inherent knowledge is already inside you, because if I quote Rumi's poem on the two kind of intelligence, he says that this inherent knowledge is like a conduit of spring water. It's like a spring water that comes out from this conduit of plumbing inside us, from inwards to outwards. And this is where we need to find ourselves when we look at these three relationships. So with that opening, without further ado, we have these three panelists. Let me introduce you. First is our distinguished Dr. Sharul. So Dr. Sharul is currently the Director of Innovation in Smart Manufacturing at SIRIM. As you know, SIRIM is an organization that is I think more on the quality. We will be talking more about SIRIM, like just a little bit, perhaps. Yeah. And he has graduated in 1999 from University of Manchester, and masters from Nottingham, and his PhD. He studies on acoustic detection and signal processing for predictive maintenance. Perhaps you will be talking about that also. University of Manchester in 2018. Okay. So yeah, I know I have very device exclusive panel, and we have Dr. Tekwin in between. So that's why I put him in between. Okay. So with over 20 years of experience in industry, because he is the Director of Innovation in Smart Manufacturing, he has also published in journals and technology articles. And currently, he is researching. His research is using artificial intelligence. I think that is the buzzword now, AI, machine learning, deep learning, and what impact it has on our world, what impact it has on the society, and it is not known. Yeah, some look at it in a very in not so positive way, but some also look at it in a very positive way. So yes, this is a very relevant research because he's doing predictive maintenance. So he's predicting or forecasting things that don't happen yet. Yeah, ideally, yeah. So, but on the other side, he said he's a confused scientist. I wonder. So loving art more than he should, acting in a few telemovies that were never popular, and wrote 2 telemovies. Really, I know, right? We have to search him after this, and that were aired in TV. Okay. I've never been on TV, and nobody believes in him. But nobody believes in him, saying that he has, come on TV. So perhaps we're going to look into YouTube. And painting a lot of abstracts on canvas that his wife is trying to get rid of for space. Oh, don't say that. So that is Dr. Shahrul. So thank you, Dr. Shahrul, for being part of the panelists. Yeah, okay. Then our second panelist is Dr. Tekwin. So I put him in between because we have two very opposite side of experts here. Yeah. So Dr. Tekwin studies the relationship between people and nature in Peninsular Malaysia. So he is an honorary associate professor and adjunct lecturer in environmental science at the Nottingham University, Malaysia. Also visiting fellow for University Malaya Centre of Malaysian Indigenous Studies. So Dr. Lim worked on forestry and climate change mitigation project in Malaysia, Indonesia and Philippines. He has advised the United Nations on building community-based climate resilience in Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, right? So he also volunteers at Shah Alam Community Forest Society. Perhaps you want to, get our audience to also be part of this society. So Dr. Tekwin will be talking on indigenous knowledge on planetary health. As we know, when we talk about that relationship, about our relationship with alam, which is nature. So what is the knowledge that comes from that? And then we talk about our relationship with our creator. What's the knowledge? That pointed circle, that pointed center. So what knowledge and how can it be disruptive? Or because perhaps we need to disrupt certain established concept or established knowledge in order for us to innovate different things, and in order for us to look at different perspective of what we have been doing all this while, which is not working that well, isn't it? So thinking out of the box again. So then, thank you, Dr. Tekwin, for being here. We have Prof. Madya Jalani Abu Hassan, or we lovingly call him Jai. Okay, I think Jai is is already known in the art scene of Malaysia art scene, a contemporary Malaysian artist, and his work draw upon and inspired of events of today, express that he used imaginary of local and the familiar things that we see around us, and put it into different contexts through his personal lens of nostalgia and history. So Jai has graduated from the prestigious Slade School of Fine Arts in London and the Pratt Institute of New York, two very, very top fine art school. He has 2 masters MFA in those schools. So he has that theoretical focus emphasized from the Slade, which is the UK education system, and that exploratory nature, experimental concept or focus of the American education system. So his product, and he comes here with using his using that training beginning to look into nostalgia and history of our local context. John is a process painter. Why you say that? Because he is interested in exploration of the act of painting itself that goes into forming of work, not on the final, but what goes in between. And this is the most interesting part of painting, I believe, because I'm a painter too. These are the things that we want to capture, because this is where the disruption, the active center of that triangle point came about. This is where we put certain things which we already established, and to break that boundaries and limit. So thank you, Jai, for being here. And without further ado, we can start with presentation, or maybe just a discussion from each of the panel. So you guys have 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, maybe we can start with Dr. Sharo.
Yeah,
since he's beside me.
All the words you were saying, all the paint,
right?
the protest and whatnot.
I know. She make it.
I never thought anything is like that. I just. So the title of this presentation is a simple one, because when Vino was asking me, do you have a slide to show? So I think, what are the things I need to do to kind of impress all these artsy people? So I think, Planetary Health science alone is not enough. So where should I go? Vino?
Letting you just press.
Vino, where is it, Vino? Okay. So, all right. So, when I look at things, I always look at things in the perspective of science and mathematics. Okay. So, when people talk about the planetary health, you always talk about sustainability. So, it's going too fast. Wait.
You accidentally press. Let's go back.
Okay. All right. Let me put it down there. Okay. So, when you talk about sustainability, when you see in the perspective of equation, it's all down to this. If X is the consumption and Y is resources, sustainability is achieved is when Y is always bigger than X. So you use less than what you produce. So therefore at equilibrium, it's X equal to Y. So I don't know whether what you're looking for when you say sustainable, are we looking for equilibrium, or are we looking for more less consumption? So then, or it can be written as Y minus X is always equal to 0. So, now imagine in your household, imagine the wife spending and your husband income. So the Y is the resources, and then the wife spending is the way you consume. So it's supposed to be a very simple equation. So because this equation is simple, it's a simple function with 3 variables. So we have Y, G, and beta, whatever variables you want to put there. So G being the major enough salary of the husband, or the income tax rate, and the PF contribution rate. It's so simple. Science will always look at the things being that simple. Okay, so coming from the experience I have with my wife.
It's not simple.
It's not simple. It's a complex equation, and it has always been a complex equation that perhaps science cannot define it. So I've been doing AI. So what you do with AI is just you put in some data and then you train that particular data. So if you put X, the output will be Y. So you just train all this with all those data are coming in, and what is the results and what is the output. But we realize that there are so ambiguous in terms of how do you define that meaning. If you can't put it in the equation, there's no way you can resolve it. So the way we are stuck in science is that we don't really know how to come up with the objective function. Because the objective function will require you to understand all the variables within that domain. Okay, so even with my wife, I cannot understand sometimes they say that you need this amount to pay for tuitions, and all of a sudden you need this amount to go on holiday because our neighbor is going for holiday and things like that. So those kind of things. So it might require a lot of thinking and the artsy part bit of it. So if this is complicated, how can you resolve the balance of these equations? How much resources do we need? Don't you need a smart solution to derive this? Hence, whatever that I'm doing today as a director or Center of Innovation and Smart Manufacturing, we are trying to put the machine as smart as possible. But one thing that we are pretty much lacking is the empathy of that particular machine. That's a buzzword nowadays. If you talk today to the scientists or you talk to the economists, they always say these things. So we need to have the empathy. But my God, whoever can come up with the right definitions with empathy, I mean, it has got to be the art people that do understand that kind of thing. Okay, so that's about it in my presentation today. So what I'm trying to show you guys that I agree to and this is the last bit. This is the last bit that I want to. Are you guys familiar with I4.0? Industrial 4.0. Okay, Industrial 4.0. This is Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is the founder of I4.0. You go everywhere, people will talk, Klaus Schwab said I4.0 is the way forward. But bear in mind, the why thingy. He said the fourth industrial revolution can compromise humanity's traditional sources of meaning, work, community, family, and identity. The moment you know every bit about other people, it can compromise the traditional source of meaning. Why? Well, see, the moment that my wife knows where do I go with my sejahtera, it could be dangerous. It can compromise a lot of things. So, but then he said, it also can lead humanity into a new collective and moral consciousness.
Sure.
Why? Because you know your neighbor don't have food. When you know your neighbor are lacking on things, you know someone else is lacking more than they should. So that will be the sense of shared destiny. But the choice is always ours. So if you think that you can continue with arts and define it whatever you want, but remember the science people are building that machines that can probably change the way you look at things. Okay, I think that's about it, Dr. Zina, on my presentation. So the rest, I think we go on with the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sharul. That's a very interesting concept of smart solution, looking at the empathy of a particular machine. Perhaps that can be discussed further on this. So we go to our next presenter, we are panelists, Dr. Tedwin. You because Dr. Tedwin is doing research on, is very involved in the indigenous knowledge. So that's something that we would want to know further about that. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Lin, for having me. Terlebih dahulu, kenapa orang putih ni? So, my background actually, maybe to get to your point, do I have the inherent knowledge to talk about indigenous issues if I'm not indigenous myself? So I'm not indigenous Malaysia, but maybe I can cheat a bit because both of my mother's parents are from Wales. And Wales, or the Welsh people, are the indigenous people of the United Kingdom, or of at least of England and Wales. If you know Wales, the flag of Wales, does anyone know the Welsh flag?
Oh, yeah, with like the dragon.
Yes, it's a red dragon.
Yeah.
And this interesting thing about dragons, the dragons are fairly universal belief in dragons. In fact, in Malaysia, we also have a belief in dragons. This is going back for thousands of years, and many Orang Asli community also have a belief. Do you know what they're called?
Dragon.
Yeah, in Malaysia, what do we call dragon?
Naga.
Yeah, Naga. So Naga is slightly different from the Welsh dragon in that it's a longer creature, more like a kind of a serpent, and the precise belief in Naga varies from group to group. The group that I've been working with most is a group in Pahang called the Batek. The Batek are these traditionally hunter-gatherer communities, and they have a belief in a special type of Naga they call the Baji. And the Baji is a rainbow-colored dragon. And the connection, or for them, the dragon is actually, can you guess? It is a rainbow. So they have this connection. When they see a rainbow, they believe that this is a creature, a giant dragon, which stretches all the way around the world. And so this gets to the question of what is their understanding of the planetary or of the planet and planetary health. they believe that if there is some disturbance, such as an earthquake, a volcano, a flood, then this is the Baji, the Naga, is upset. Something has upset it. Something that humans have done has disturbed the course of nature. And there are various taboos in their culture, things that they should not do. I won't list them all, but the main point is that if you do these things, then you will upset this Naga, and the Naga will then writhe around, the body will writhe, and that will cause all these planetary disasters that we talked about. So, of course, this is not exactly the same as the scientific perception. However, they do believe that a lot of the problems that we're facing in the world today, and of course they watch TV as well, so they hear about climate change, they hear about global warming, and they can see in like around their neighborhood vast areas of forests that have been cleared for oil palm, and they say, all right, now we have the two main impacts of climate change in Malaysia as an intense climate. So on one hand, you have more intense drought. On the other hand, you have more intense floods. And they relate this to the disturbance of the environment. Okay, so I'll just end on 2 points. One is that the Orang Asli, the indigenous people, are particularly affected by climate change. But the second point, perhaps more uplifting, and it's a build on some of the points that Dr. Ling and Dr. Sharo mentioned earlier, is that the tradition, we should have respect for the traditional attitudes towards the environment, and because these traditional attitudes have allowed them to survive so far, and it gives them a certain amount of resilience to climate change into the future, right? And so why are they more vulnerable? Well, mainly because they are away from most of these indigenous communities, both in Peninsular Malaysia and in Sabah Sarawak, are away from the city center. So they don't have the same level of support that we have, which kind of buffers things such as the shortage of food and droughts and so on. So they also, many of these communities still rely on food that comes from natural sources such as the forest. So they're still foraging in the forest. Then if there's any disruption in the climate, that could have food security consequences on them. And similarly, when you have floods coming up, a lot of these communities are next to rivers, and they are affected. And the emergency services, the health services find it hard to reach them. And also to bring welfare, like during the pandemic, there had to be airlifted supplies by helicopter. However, despite all of these disadvantages, I think that they generally have a resilience because they have faced floods for thousands of years, and so they know that there are certain traditions about where they can build houses, where it's bad luck. And I'm not sure if you've heard of lidah buaya. Buaya is like when you have I think it's the two rivers that converging in one point and joining the mainstream, or it might not be. In fact, you end up with three, so it's like the tongue of a serpent, and they say that is really bad luck to build there or to make a campsite there. And of course, if you think about it in terms of hydrology, you realize that if there's going to be a flash flood, that will be the area which would be affected because you've got three catchment areas converging in one place. And that's just one example of things which we as city folk or scientists, we might be arrogant and think, all right, these are superstitions. And we denigrate or we look down on religion and superstition. And we say the solution is actually our scientific solution that we try and impose on them. And when in actual fact, there is some value to that ancient wisdom that we might not see on at first sight.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I like that buzzword. I like the word when you talk about resilient. How resilient you are. Perhaps, and we can discuss further on that, because I believe that what don't kill you will make you stronger. But is that something that, in a way, that we can kind of connect that to sustainability? I could see like some very loose connection there on the resilience of their attitude resilience, because they do live a hard life. I mean, but to them that is what they are used to, so they don't see that as a hard life. But for us, we're not used to that. Would be something that we would reconsider to adopt. Okay, thank you, Dr. Tedwin, for that, and also the very interesting take on Welsh and how you connect Welsh and us, in terms of Naga. And I realized that Naga is not just in Malaysia; it's a very regional, even in India. Yeah. It's something like a creature that has always been part of our beliefs and culture.
It's quite universal. It
is quite universal, although it has different form in China, in Hong Kong, and even in Thai. They have this big dragon in the Suvarnabhumi airport. So, but they have different form, in a way that different detailings that would actually come from that local and indigenous knowledge, and beliefs. Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Tedwin. So we go to Prof. Jai. I mean, let's talk about your imagery of landscape, the biography of landscape.
Oh gosh. Can I have a slide?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lina. It's a very interesting and very brief but interesting introduction by both gentlemen here. I can kind of engage myself to try to position myself. Where do I fit in between these two interesting gentlemen? I will not try to. So definitely, if you give me a chance to cut a joke or change the topic, I will change the topic, because I think my preparation for this talk is a bit elaborate. 5 minutes je. Come on. And I have like 20 slides to present.
Smart manufacturing.
It started with that. Okay, anyway.
We do have time, so you can take your time.
I try to look at my art. I'm an artist. I make art in a way, and I try to look at myself as I'm not trying to look at myself as linking my career or my art making with science. Nor do I try to make sense of whether or not my art, save the planet. I can't do that at this moment. So I'm guilty as charged. But maybe I said to myself, I just figured out this strategy about 2 minutes ago. I said, maybe what I can share is to give you guys a bit of a perspective on how do artists work? How do artists create this so-called creation of art? How do artists engage try to come out with this novelty, the new ideas? That maybe somehow within that premise, we can later on conclude that, Jai did contribute something to the art, to the humanity, or to the science. Okay, that's probably the basic scope of my talk. And before that, probably it's best for me to bring you to the whole context why I have 20 slides today, what that slide is all about. As an artist, for the past 50 years, I've been making art. The last 3 or 4 years ago, it kind of a turning point for all of us, the pandemic, this isolation, and we look at, and it renovated the whole idea of how you perceive your career or your art making, or this one, myself, and also changes how you look at the world around. And even the more important thing, how you look at yourself again and again. So reinventing myself after that 3 years, after the pandemic, I think probably the kind of discussion I'm going to share with you today. And you guys remember in between that pandemic, we were given like a slot. Per bulan, we were like, they live there, everybody can go out for a while. And that moment, I took a flight and flew to Langkawi, not for the holiday, but to sort of, I don't know, to sort of, what do you call that? To heal yourself, or to kind of commune with what you've been missing all this while, the nature and things like that. Not holiday, but more like working for yourself. And over there, it struck me. I kind of like rediscover the whole idea of looking at the land, looking yourself. And like you're communing with the land, you're coming back to where you belong. You're coming back to where you're supposed to be with. So, but this is just a gimmick of the slide. When I put the work by Bensky, the earth without the art is just yeah, that's perfectly suitable for this talk. Okay, that's basically the rough idea of. See, we have a problem with this.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna write this clever word, which doesn't make any sense if you look at it again. It's art again. Try to define art. Try to put art in the pedestal. Try to make how superior the art is as opposed to the sign. But it doesn't work that way. But maybe it kind of makes sense to me that how this moment of hope, flying back to Langkawi, commune with the nature, and have that moment of hope. And the only way to engage with that is do what you do best, which is making art. As simple as that. So from there, so I look at landscape again. I've been making a lot of art and a lot of subject matter, from dealing with political issue to the environmental issue to the art of like our friend here. I was intrigued by mythology, by local culture. But in this particular work, it has nothing to do with that at all. It's all about reassessing or relooking at the way you commune, the way you look at land again. So I'm looking at land as sorry. So all these pictures taken in Langkawi actually. You're looking at the land not as a subject matter, not as the landscape is not so much of a geography, but more like a biography, but a life by itself. So interesting to see between nature and culture when you're dealing with the arts. And so I'm engaging toward that maybe, and it's a metaphor how humankind kind of looking at their existence. So this picture taken right after that pandemic, not right after that, within that period that we are allowed to go out for a while. And it was really, how do you call it? It was really mysterious after so long. After so long, you kind of enclosed and going out, the whole thing becomes so mysterious again. Okay. So this is particularly taken from Pulau Tuba. I don't know if you know Pulau Tuba in Langkawi. And it was serene, it's so quiet. Can I just give you some context of this thing? And I'm going to read this bit. You know, especially now that we no longer can ignore the reality of climate change. This is my attempt to connect with this discussion. I'm so happy I can mention the word climate change today. So I belong finally, and to see our relationship and how we deal with, like I mentioned today, the empathy, the ambiguity, the uncertainty that we have around us. So I think that's my job as an artist, that kind of like bring all this intrinsic quality. Can we call that, Lynn? I think can, out. And by doing that, my observation toward nature has to be changed. I can't look at landscape as a place or as a geography, as a location anymore. You have to look at land as in the different context, in the more microscopic context, rather than people play in Langkawi thousands of times. Landscape, pemandangan, sawah, padi, kerbau, and all that. But I had to change this perception a little bit. And in my context here, so this is some of the pictures taken in Langkawi, and I just flash through so that you can see. And I'm going to take you back to my studio. What happened in the studio after this? So again, I cannot control this room.
Do you want?
Okay. So this kind of the pandemic moment, this kind of isolation period, kind of forced me, or us. When I say me, I hope that I'm representing us. Forced me to sort of prioritize and to draw closer and create the boundaries again. And we had this before, but it's kind of a missing link within that period. And then to reclaim that is the purpose of me going back to see the land. So this is what I get. This is all the pictures I got from. So you don't see Langkawi, and you don't see that. The Singles Awakening. Not lah. Okay, tak apa. Okay, now I'm going back to the studio. Fine.
Okay.
After all that information, I'm going back to the studio. And I like this quotation by, I cannot remember, Tolkien, I think. We created by the law in which we are made. And that's relate closely. Closely to what I'm trying to mention just now. So this is my first attempt. This is the first attempt. When you see all the topography of the island just now, you see the detail, the macroscopic view of the landscape. This is why I brought back to the studio. This is actually a painting. But I don't paint. I don't paint with the brush. That's a different issue. I don't paint. This is the studio. This is a material intelligence. This is how artists work. You don't paint. You understand the material. You understand the property. You understand the process, and you allow that process to sort of navigate themselves. You're just the navigator. So what you see here is a mark making process on canvas. The mark making process on canvas. Artists use all sort of things. I don't want to mention it because you will claim that Jai rosakkan the world. Because this is a synthetic material, this is polyurethane, this is a bitumen, this is a petroleum-based material. But that's beside the point. We put that topic in for the next discussion. But this is how me as an artist work in this context. I'll show you some more. So this is all the mark. I won't call it art yet. I won't call it a painting yet. This is the evidence. This is from the material process, for the understanding of the material, for the understanding of the process, understanding the intrinsic property of the material as well. So you will ask me, but apa ni Jai? How do you get this mark? I have no idea. No, not 100%. I don't have an idea. I allow the nature, I allow the process, I allow the material property kind of take charge. You just navigate here. I go detail on this part a little bit. So this is my lab. I won't call it studio because I'm at the science center today. So I call it a laboratory. So this is how it happened after the Langkawi trip. This is how it happened. The land, focus, the land is still there. The land, not as a geography, but the land as a how do you call it? The land as a biography again. Dia hidup, dia bernyawa, dia ada hayat. Yeah, I'm going back. I'm going to press dia tak boleh. Okay. So this is my small description. Landscape as an animating, liberating metaphor rather than the rigid interpretation of a place, time. I mentioned this earlier. And I'm not trying to define what the landscape is, but I'm probably trying to look at the way I commune and I explore and play with the notion of the land. Play with the notion of the land, not treating the land, not trying to depict the land, but play with that notion. And that's a way of communing it with the landscape. This is the making. This is the detail of making. I will go detail on this if you ask me later on, but I just flashed through. This is it. This is the actual field. A bit of scenario of the studio, the lab. And what is the art without showing it? So we have to complete the circle, right? You have to complete that circle, that ecosystem. You go get the idea, you process, you make the phenomenological part of it, and then the exhibition. This is the exhibition I had right after the pandemic. I call this series Lanskap Daerah Sama in Malay. Daerah Sama is ambiguous. Ambiguity. So this is the kind of work that I've done. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. I hope I make sense. Oh, thank you.
I know, right? Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Jai, for that sharing.
Very fast. I hope
Yeah,
get the gist of it.
Yeah. We have time for question and answers. Anything that perhaps you want Dr. Tedwin, Dr. Sharul, and Prof. Jai to elaborate on their processes and your understanding of the indigenous and nature, that creation of knowledge from nature, and how the indigenous people actually create that as part of their tradition, and how they become resilient out of that knowledge, with all the differences. And perhaps resilience is the key to sustainability, rather than creating no technology or new work I'm sorry, Mr. Sharul. I have to say that. But again, when you mention about going towards AI, creating no innovations in terms of machines and technology, you are looking towards the missing link, which is the empathy. Yeah. So here you will see Jai linking that link of landscape as a biography that tells a story. So I can see that some connection between the three of your work, because at first when I chose these three panels, I said, how am I going to connect these people, and let's go back to our role function as the wise stewardship in our role and relationship towards our human being, towards our creator, towards our nature, and and somehow I can see that everything is falling into places when you guys, when you're the gentlemen sharing what you have. So I would like to open this session to any questions from the audience, or perhaps you can just ask Jai or everyone else and Sharul and also Tedwin to just elaborate further on what they want to, what they have presented just now. Any question from the audiences? Yes.
Hello. Hi, I'm Siti Hawa Ngalim. I'm wearing several different hats, but at the moment I think I will represent University Science Malaysia, also YSN. So for your information, I'm not an artist. I'm a cell molecular biologist. Okay, when it comes to this topic, art and science, I would say that at the beginning it sounds really foreign to me, because the way I think it's all about, I don't know, numbers, data, microscopy, not so much art. But because of my background, doing the research, I know that everything in our body, it's actually crawling. All the cells in our body are crawling. Okay. Nothing is pretty much stationary unless they are minerals, but they too get broken down and being replaced. So to me, even like living beings, it's actually a work of art. The way we actually form, into ourselves. Simple example, why the shells actually, turn into like that. Corals turn into like that. Even ourselves, our heads are on top, why our fingers look like this. Some people have 6. fingers. So for a scientist like me, I can imagine the art, what's going on, for example, in terms of planetary health, how our planet, simple example, are polluted with plastics, pollution, air pollution, etc. And even our food has, some conditioning material to preserve it. And all these things, it gets, in the cycle, in the chain, and it comes to us. Even one of the talk earlier by Dr. Jamila Mahmood, she said that 80% of us has microplastic in our bloodstream because our reliance on, things are packed in plastic. So in the context of planetary health, all this come back to us. Like from your perspective, how do we scientists can relay our thoughts on art science when it's difficult for us to just, present it? We are not that creative. Well, I'm not that creative. So how do we translate it? Because most of the time it's just in the head, how things are, the art should be like that, but I don't have the skills. We don't have the skills. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Siti, do you have anyone particular that you want to ask? Okay, maybe we can go around. So we start with Dr. Sharul, perhaps. Yes, the conflict artist.
The boundary conditions, because we being scientists, you always being stuck in that boundary condition. You go into any equations, there will be these boundary conditions. And these boundary conditions will always stop you from going there. So I'm stuck with like 67 engineers in the office. So it's the same thing. The engineers will see things as this boundary and they look into the process in terms of there's this process within this particular boundary that you must follow. But arts give you different thing. But you got to remember, every time that if you are a scientist and you try to go into artsy stuff, people will say like, it's a bit weird though. That's the concept. It's a bit weird. So I like today I brought my painting over here, and then I was trying to tell. I was trying to, if you're familiar with spectrometer, so I took a spectrometer and I drew up. It's a sound spectrometer, so I say backward. And then I recorded it and I drew it. So I'm visiting my house. I told my wife it's a backward, but it is from perspective of science. This is spectrometer. So, but then always the problem with us is we think that when we saw Jai, bloody hell, sorry. I will look at Jai, I will be like, oh my God, there are a lot of things that I need to learn. I was scared to do this. Judging it because we are there. We are there. We are so into that judgment within that boundary condition. So if you were to ask me, start small and write. Rarely you see good engineers write good poems. Okay, write. Do whatever things that you feel like, that's it when I want to venture into this. And slowly, these are the kind of things that will change not your generations, but perhaps generation after you. Then people like us will allow your kids to go into arts, will allow the biggest critic about arts is kau nak makan apa. So that's the biggest critic about art. So that's why people take engineering. So I mean, slowly you start to educate them, and that's what we do as a scientist. That's my perspective as a scientist. I mean, Jai and probably Dr. Bing have different perspective on that matter. All right, that's it.
Thank you. Can I?
Yes.
I like The humbleness. But don't quit your day job lah. No, you must not take me seriously when that. Okay, thank you. It's a very interesting concern, but I beg to differ on the perception that again that the art is sort of a solution to the whole world issue. Not really. Or I don't have a skill, so I wouldn't go to the art. Or I'm not a scientist, so I wouldn't go to the art. I disagree with that a little bit, because we are human beings, with the same human being, with the same cell system, with the whole same biological system. And what makes one person creative than another has nothing to do with your job or your profession. Bankers are very creative. Scientists are very creative. Engineers, they're very creative. So creativity doesn't belong to the artist. Mind, we have to remember that. And doesn't belong to the artist per se. So on that note, I think it has a lot to do with I don't know how. There was a moment where I was a bit. I'm a teacher as well. I teach at the university, and this idea, this whole misconception about art is a talent, art is a skill that you were inborn with. It's an innate ability, which I do not believe at all. Because as a teacher, I don't believe at all, because the whole human skill is methodical. You can teach them, you can learn. It's an acquired skill. You give me somebody who do not know art, for instance, one day I can teach him, I can make him an artist. I can promise you that. Because I know the skill, I know the trick, I know the language. Obviously, when somebody say I'm not an artist, so I don't know. Obviously, you don't know art because you don't learn about the art. All you need to do, go and learn. I don't know anything about science. I don't know anything about engineering. You talk to me about engineering. So people have this idea that art is special, come from heavens, and only selected person can have that. I do not believe that. So back to the question. I think science and art has always been there. I mean, the Renaissance that split us in the 16th century. They used to call it natural science. I don't know if it's correct. They used to call natural science. So art and science was never separated. We were always there together. When the Renaissance came in, when they start to do, or when the Bauhaus came in, when they start to differentiate the human skill into certain specific nature, then art and science got separated. But as a human being, the natural science is always within us. So I think back to this, the young lady's question is that whether science can have a way to engage people in understanding the whole world. I think the same way like the artist doing. So the scientists have to do it in their scientific way, and the artist will be doing on their artistic way, and the engineer will be doing that on the engineering way. If I cannot teach a scientist to make art and try to address the issue about the world. I cannot do that. So neither can I teach engineer to make art in order to promote their agenda in the engineering. I cannot do that. So I don't know whether that makes sense or not. So again, I think everybody or every discipline has its own way of dealing with this human knowledge, and for some reason it functions in one common goal, which is to save the planet. I think that's just a random view. Thank you for bringing that issue.
All right. So I can't speak to your specific situation, City, but I can say that for me, one of the things I'm most thankful for having joined the Center for Malaysian Indigenous Studies in was a chance to meet people like Brandon and Shak Koyok, who are, professional artists. And that has been a wonderful opportunity to make friends who look at things from a perspective that is really fresh and enlightening in many ways. And so if you have friends who are on the artistic bent, then just simply spending time with them, perhaps even like Zai mentioned, asking them to teach you could help. I certainly have learned a lot from spending time with Brandon, arranging his artwork, and also Shak. I've joined Shak when he's been painting some of his murals, And you just spend time with these people, and they really open up a new world for you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have one question at the back. Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Dakshini Jagannathan, and I actually have a question to everyone here, and starting with Jalani Uncle. I met Jalani Uncle in Langkawi actually. I was one of the BMS Young Contemporaries this year.
Okay.
So we all visited his studio. Yeah, in Langkawi.
I
For
don't
the
know.
Aka Dasa Laut program.
Tajali studio, not my studio. Tajali studio, somebody else.
But we met you.
Yeah, we met in Tajali studio. Yeah, I remember.
We met.
Yeah, that's
So-
not my studio.
Actually, I lost my dad recently. His name is artist Jagannathan Ramachandran. Some of you might know him.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been using painting to heal myself, visual arts. Even my project for young contemporaries was healing extensions. And in my project is inspired by the environment actually. And when I was listening to Jalani Uncle's speech about nature and how it affects his work, it's literally like it's become like an extension of your work. That's how it sounds like to me. And always art and science have always had a connection in their primitive existence. It's only as time went by we separated the two. And even right now, I am standing here past great difficulties because I did just a moment back have an anxiety attack. But what helps me is the visuals of nature, trees, the sound of birds. Even my dad's studio, which I still keep in his memory, is close to a forest. And I wake up to the sound of birds actually in the morning. And it has got such a healing effect on our heart. As an artist, I relate to it. As a scientist, someone would understand, maybe scientifically prove how it affects our neurons, our minds, our brains. So what I wanted to ask the panelists, this connection between art and science that is blurred over the time, what do you think could bring it out to the general public? Because we are all connected to art and science by nature. It's just that over time, maybe even school has made us forget it. But it's an innate connection we have within us. So that's what I would like to bring to the panel and ask them for their suggestion and opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dakshini. So I think the question was that how do we relate? How do we connect with art and science? And even school is already at the school level, small children are already being streamlined to different discipline. How do we actually connect arts and science through what purpose and through what function and what's the method? I guess Dakshini is asking what's the best method that we can converge this to great discipline. Probably Dr. Sharu will have some idea.
I was asked this same questions almost 30 on different things. I hope when the moment we start connecting, and they were asking me yesterday, so what are the things that are fundamental to this applications of technology within the industry? And I said this down. Honesty. Honesty. Then that's a key that connect these two, the arts and science, because it's a two world that, believe me, that one of the reasons that probably most of us wouldn't let the kids to take up the arts bit, because we are thinking about, can it pay? Can the arts pay? Not a lot.
That's being honest. Isn't it?
Let's be honest about it. Yeah.
So probably Jai can, not a lot of them. Not a lot of them can get that. So we start to have this. And the same thing in the what I call the arts and the physical or the science world, so the economics and whatnot. We are lacking in terms of that. Let's for once to connect and build it on that honesty. Why are you doing this art? I want to enjoy, I want to, like you were saying, as a therapy. Tell the world that I'm doing this for therapy, not because I saw Jairo selling this painting for 2 million, so probably this. So that kind of honesty, that to me, that is a connection that is missing, because there's no way that without honesty, you can start bridging it to get.
I think it boils down to the intention.
Yeah.
You're
Why?
being an artist, you're being a scientist. What's your intention? I mean, in the end, you're going to find out. You're going to try and find what's your core value and what it means to you. And you proceed from that. So, Takwin, do you want to elaborate?
You can tell I'm from a science background because I kind of tried to approach art from a scientist's perspective, looking at fundamental principles and so on. So the one that has drawn me the most is graphic design, and you can look this up. I'm not an expert on it, but you've got certain principles like repetition, contrast,
art
focus,
elements,
and those are elements of design that are pretty universal. If you're writing an academic paper, it also applies. And if you're coming up with presenting your findings for a scientific paper, your visual, the graphics are so important in all sciences to have a good visual presentation. And so, that's what I would say is that those principles should definitely be taught to all students, whether they're in the arts or science stream.
Okay, that's a very interesting, because we always believe that sometimes when people ask, I don't understand this art, I don't understand it. What is it about, because perhaps we don't know the language, and the language is knowing what are art elements, the basic fundamentals of art elements and design. And once you look at it, perhaps you can look at it in a formalistic way about how the stroke, gestural expressiveness of that stroke can actually relate to you, that you can actually appreciate that it has some kind of connection to your own experiences. So I believe that knowledge of the different language, because scientists speaks different language, artists speaks different language, but in the end, the values is still the same, right? So why not we just learn another language? Then hence we'll be able, because skills can be practiced. You practice every day. Morning, sundown, sunrise, drawing, sketches, YouTube videos. You can make a really realistic portrait. After 1 year, 2 years, I think Jai should know, because he's an education. He teach people how to get that practice. But in the end, it boils down to that intention, because then only you start to understand why you're doing this. Yeah. So yes, true. It is in the end, it's honesty, and it's the hardest thing to do, isn't it? Asking you a very honest question that only you know the answer, right? Jai, do you want to add on or something?
Thank you very much. Good to see you again. If you ask,
I was talking about self-healing right now.
What?
Self-healing. And our topic for art science this year is planetary health. How do you relate this self-healing to planetary health? Because when we are better people, we can take care of our planet in a better way.
Well, thank you again. If you ask me that question, I'm sorry, my dear, I can't answer you at all. I don't have the solution. I don't have the proper answer to that. But what I can tell you, based on what Dr. Lin was saying just now about the knowledge, it seems to me that art being given at any occasion, especially today, art being given this massive responsibility to save the world. Why we're forgetting that engineering have a massive responsibility to save the world, but there's not art and engineering. We have art and science. So something about the art, there must be something about the art that was perceived as the Messiah.
Romanticizing it.
I'm the artist here, being romanticized as the solution to every problem in the world, especially the planetary problem. So that's overwhelming. Overwhelming. I can't save you guys. I cannot give a good answer to that question. And I just learned a lot of things from Dr. Good friend here today. I'm a learner. I have a lot of things to learn. So having said that, I think we have to go back to the epistemology, the origin of the knowledge itself. And it's not fair to say that, I don't know art because art is a specialty. No, you just, like Dr. Twin said, you have to learn the language. That's all. I don't know engineering, obviously, you have to learn the language.
Yeah.
Definitely. When you talk to me about bridges, I can understand. But you talk about the equation, about this, I don't know.
To appreciate that.
I cannot. But if I talk to you about art, about kelapa, scenery, you understand very well. But I give you abstract form, you can't understand. Because abstraction has its own language. So you have to understand that epistemology. We have a burden to deal with, a tremendous burden. Because art is a savior. That's what
As a
perception.
savior, yeah.
We see that art as a savior, but it's really not. It's a collective. It's a whole humankind, a whole knowledge put together. And maybe people say putting that together is a form of art. Well, if you want to go that level still, but again, I understand how it heals you tremendously. It heals me when I was in Langkawi too. And being in my studio, buka pintu studio, inside the studio, I don't paint. I just sit there and breathe. Sapu sampah. It heals me a lot. Sometimes I have to go to the studio every day just to open the door and smell that oil paint and the cleaner, and then close the door and go back home and start my routine. So that kind of thing, how do you explain that? How do you equate that? The knowledge of that part, you cannot. So it's more, I don't know how whether I answer the question or not. It's just being uniquely human. I think that's the key word.
Yeah.
Each and every one of us.
Yeah.
With our own skill. Don't try to be an artist. Or don't try to. No, I didn't mean that way. I didn't mean that way. But if art is not a profession, art is a healing method, by all means.
Yes.
If art is your personal journey to find yourself, by all means. But don't make a career out of it. Okay. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you for the question. Any more question? Yeah. Oh, okay. Dr. Hanif and Brandon. Okay, we'll go with Dr. Hanif first. Yeah.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, it's. I think so.
Is it on? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Hanif. I'm from the Institute of IR 4.0.
That's yours. It's yours.
UKM. My question is: have any of you have collaborated with people outside your field, like outside art, like with people from engineering or data scientists, geologists, in creating your work? And if you have, what's your process? Thank you.
That's your question, that is not mine.
To me?
Yeah, no question.
For everybody who
I work with them all the time. I work with the scientists all the time.
I mean, in creating art, not in terms of, like you work with people from outside art to create art.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so I had one recent opportunity to work with Shak Poyo, and we combined his art with my background as a conservation biologist. We went to an Orang Asli community in Tasik Chini, and the funding for this project came from an environmental-based organization. And so they wanted to have an angle that was looking at the conservation of wildlife. And so Shak, if you guys know, he's famous for his murals. His murals are normally of indigenous people, the faces of indigenous people. But this time we decided to have a slightly different focus, and he painted a gibbon. And for those of you who don't know, a gibbon are a type of ape, and they're native to Malaysia. And the one he painted in particular was a white-handed gibbon, which is found in the peninsula. It's an endangered species, totally protected, and also quite important for the culture of the Jakun people of Tasik Bra. Tasik Chini. In fact, the name Chini is believed to mean a gibbon. So this was an opportunity for him not just to create a piece of artwork, but to contribute to conservation biology more generally.
Okay.
So how does the process go?
Okay, so the process, we didn't really plan it so much in advance, but we got a group, the Malaysian Gibbon Society, I think a Gibbon Conservation Society, and they came and they gave a presentation about their gibbons, and it just so happened that there was one individual gibbon which they had a love story. They had a photo or several photos of that one gibbon, and we selected one of those to be the portrait that Chuck would paint. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I have one with Tenun Pahang. So we did with Tenun Pahang. So we saw Tenun Pahang. Then they said, let's mechanize this Tenun Pahang. So the process is simple to us. As an engineer, what we do, we look at the process and we just automate the entire process. But then, have you seen Tenun Pahang? Tenun Pahang is such simple process, which is one by one. So you go in, and then say, you go in and say, so there's no real corak or anything like that. So, and that makes me wonder, is that simple? Because it's so simple now. It's Tenun Pahang, one by one. So are we selling it at the price of a man-made tenun? So then we kind of scrap the idea because after a while, it kind of stopped the younger people to venture into that. Everybody is so into the control of the machine rather than to understand the arts of the tenun itself. So we noticed that we have this, we put it, we were wondering, because it's the same process, we imitate the process, we automate it. So we were wondering, how can it be different? So then when we put side by side, we realized there are some differences. When you are lazy, when you're not, because the machines...
That nuances, yeah?
Yeah. So there will be one strand that perhaps not really that compacted. But that is art. And the other is just machine.
That imperfection, That imperfection.
I think this is the process. So I'll go back to your, if I may add, go back to your concern. I wouldn't take it as a question, but more like a concern. Especially now in the 21st century or the contemporary art, the whole idea about assessing ataupun about appreciating art has changed tremendously, especially in the education system. We no longer look at art, as art. Especially, I'm teaching final year postgraduate now. It's a whole process is the art. The byproduct is not the art. Don't quote me. Not the art. We're not interested in the byproduct. We're interested on the journey to get to that byproduct. So the process is everything. Back to your tadi, the process itself is the body of knowledge that we are looking for. Before this, I was taught way back in my uni day, you just produce your artwork, you want to see your artwork, you interpret your artwork, you want to see the byproduct. But different case now. It's the aesthetic of method as opposed to the aesthetic of style. We don't care what style you're doing. But we want to know how you get there. There's a quote saying it's the journey more important than the destination. So that's a 21st century thing. So back to the question of this gentleman here, collaboration, learning other people's knowledge, and bring together arts and science, bring together engineering. I think that's the whole idea of this competition. And the whole group yang menang tu, engineer,
which is
scientist.
Dr. Hanif.
See, so that's a contemporary thing now. It's gone are the day where artists produce artwork and by himself or herself, or engineer work on their own group. Gone of that period already. So I think you're right today. When you say the process is more interesting rather than the outcome, I second on that.
Okay. Okay, maybe just one last question from Brendan.
Sorry, question. It's okay if I don't know it's fine because it's a long question.
Okay, Dr. Lakshmi, perhaps
for a comment.
Thank you. I think I'm Lakshmi and from Monash, Malaysia. Thank you very much, and I think it's been a really fascinating discussion. Sorry, we ran a bit late earlier, so we missed the initial bit. Yeah, but I think going back to what you all were saying about and I think what Siti had mentioned earlier as well. I think when we talk about art, I think not to be a messiah and save the world. I think it's a lot of responsibility.
Yes, too much.
But I think what it is that sometimes we are lacking, as you said, it's a skill. Maybe I think it could be promoted better as an educator, right? I'm saying so from childhood, I think we have lost it somewhere along the way. I think I've noticed kindergarten kids and all have it. And then by the time we get to primary and secondary, it's like, we're doing coloring or, it's all pre-done, preset template. That's not art in my mind. So that's something I think we really need to change. So at the school level and higher education, and actually I beg to differ in engineering, I visited University of Sydney. They've actually got engineering student artwork all along the wall. And another example was we visited Oxford University Fajar, Oxford University Publishing in Shah Alam, I think. So they had a session where they got all their staff from bottom up to do artwork. So all their canvases are put, up on the wall. I thought it was somebody's artwork, and they said no, it was all their staff. So these are things maybe that we could do. Coming from a medical school, there are actually research papers showing that if you introduce students to art appreciation classes, so one thing is workshops, I would suggest, art workshops, and the other one is art appreciation. So they showed that when medical students were exposed to art appreciation class, and then for those who didn't, and then we have to do something called clinical skills, right? Learn how to be with patients, examine the patient, and so on. They found that the ones who had art appreciation class did far better, all right? Their grades were better, all right? So why? The reason is art appreciation teaches you to observe, right? And that's what I noticed. My late mother-in-law is an artist, so that's always, observe this, observe that, right? So I think your powers of observation change. So I think there's a lot more that we can actually develop from the ground up. Okay, that's just my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are running out of time, so I will just go briefly on our ArtScience Prize. For any other question, you can email to Vino, and then we will try and answer it through emails. Yeah, so that we will keep this discussion going, that is not going to end here. So perhaps, we can look at this. The whole idea of this engagement is to actually communicate and to share this, our ASM Academy Science Malaysia ArtScience Prize. This is the second running. We had our first one in 2021. We have our first winner there. Dr. Hanif was our winner for 2021. So we have our objective that it is held biannually, and it is actually the first ever to be established in Malaysia, and organized by Academy Science Malaysia, with also supported by National Art Gallery and many other institutions, education institution, businesses, industry, and also for this year, Yayasan Maybank is co-sponsoring our initiative, So it is this art science competition is not new. It's been held around the globe, and it is a unique competition that focuses on that conversion of art science. So when you ask how do we converge that art science, it can be in the methodology, it can be materials, it can be technology, it can also be at the philosophical level, and you come up with like a painting, but it is based on something totally scientific, like Dr. Sharol, based on his spectrometer, where he screamed some really nasty words and came up as that, and only he knows that is a nasty word, because to other people, when people look at it, you won't understand. So hence that process, that journey should be documented. So this is where we want to look at in our ArtScience Prize, because it is not finally, of course, your artwork or your product must be good enough to be presented in an exhibition. But that statement, the artist statement, the journey, the documentation of your process is the one that we're looking for, because that is where the conversions of art science occurs, isn't it? During the process, not the final product, right? So So when people ask, how are we going to look into this art science? That's the process. And you put it into the context of planetary health, which can be a landscape as an autobiography, as a biography, indigenous knowledge from nature, the empathy of object functions, empathy of machines. How a machine lacks empathy, that can be also a focus or context that you want to work your process in. So, okay, next. All right, so last year in 2020 we had 65 applications. Then we came up with 13 finalists and 1 winner and 1 rising star. So winner won 20,000, so this year is also 20,000. Challenge, trophy, certificate and residency attachment. So since ASM has so much connection and network for residency, so it's your choice to go there. Probably for our winner, Dr. Hani, because it was during PKP, so he chose something which is more local and near. So right. Yeah. And the Rising Star Award by Dr. Rupesh and Dr. Muhammad Fizuddin, Artificial Autonomy and the Question of Sensitivity in AI. Dr. Sharul, this is your field. Okay, so these are you can look into our website and you can look further into this artwork. Okay, next. So then we had our virtual exhibition. We were supposed to have physical, but PKP come about and it totally, wrecked all our plans. And we have a virtual exhibition. Is still there, so you can just go into the Maybank Foundation, the HTTP, go into our website. There's a link there, click into it and look at all the 13 finalists so that you have ideas, how you want to present this submission. Next, okay, so for this year, is open to all Malaysian. First prize 20,000 with a certificate and residency attachment. Then we have a Rising Star Award and we also have a People Choice Award. And also the finalists will have a certificate and a show and to exhibit your artwork at Maybank Gallery because it is being sponsored by Yayasan Maybank at Maybank Gallery. So that is a good deal, isn't it? So right, so you can read further. So you can only submit maximum of 2 submissions for each person, each applicants. All right, next. Okay, thank you. So please submit your application. Do not hesitate what kind of definition. People come to me, what is art science? What's your definition? We want to know your definition and how you justify that definition and frame it in the planetary health in many ways. So hence Jai has framed his research or his artwork in planetary health as landscape, as biography, something that has experience, something that has a life, something that tells a story. So that is something that we can also look into. Dr. Techwin into the nature knowledge, the indigenous knowledge, how Naga, can be part of that. You can look into the art science of Naga, right? And different region have different form of Naga, and how is actually relate to how nature is responding to whatever external factor that's going on, isn't it? And Dr. Sharul in his spectrometer, where he can screen now more, I think, with John Quinn, with longer expletives, and perhaps you can get a more colorful painting there. Yeah, colorful. That's right. So thank you so much for being here. I'm Dr. Rosina Ismail again, chairperson for ASM ArtScience and moderating this marvelous and distinguished gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming here, and we hope to have more engagement. So look up for our website, submit. Thank you. Deadline is 1st December. Okay, 1st December. You have time. Come, submit. Thank you.